So, I'm also going to be focusing a bunch on Anicca, on the impermanence today. One of the core reality of our lives. And I offer you two possibilities now. One is to stay in yourself and quiet. The other is to turn to your neighbor and tell them your name, introduce yourself, and what are your thoughts about impermanence right now? And we'll have an hour and a half to do this. No, just a couple of minutes, just to introduce and speak about this truth of impermanence. Hi, Kirsten. Greetings. We're speaking of impermanence. Yeah. Good. Thank you. Hit the wing. So, as is customary in the Buddhist world, we remind ourselves at the beginning of practice of the refuges in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I certainly like to think about PIMC not as a religious organization, though we are that legally, but as a spiritual organization, and that our task is remembering our interconnectedness with each other. And it's not through the intercession of some supernatural being, it's through the actual development of consciousness that we human beings are capable of. It's the Buddha, huge discovery, the discovery on the part of the Buddha that we are actually co-creators in a way of our lives. Hi. And so the Buddha is that in us which is awake. Notice it we take consciousness so for granted, but notice you're conscious right now. And you can be aware of being conscious. If you slept well last night, there were hours when you didn't exist. You were just gone. And then consciousness. So that's the Buddha, and then the Dharma. The Dharma is the way things actually are. All of our direct experiences. And the Sangha is the community of practice. And I like to broaden it out. It's the community of all life here on the earth, because all of life is awakening. All of life is conscious. So, I invite you to join in this modern rendition of the refuges. I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, and I take refuge in the Sangha. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. Once again, I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. Once upon a time, they tell us, there was nothing. And then in an eye blink, there was this universe. And everything in the universe came out of nothing. Every religious and spiritual tradition has a story of this coming into being. Spider woman came from the sky, or great mother spider, or God did it in 7 days, or Vishnu opened his eyes and looked across a fly entered the room and disturbed Vishnu in his eons of sleep. And he opened his eyes and the universe was born. His eyes tracked across space and then reached the far side and closed his eyes, and the universe winked out. So we try to make sense of something which is impossible to make sense of. However, we can observe the reality of this coming into being and disappearing of universes in every second. we don't notice it because we live in a kind of trance. A lot of different trances. The trance of the past, the trance of anxiety, the trance of future, the trance of greed. And I want to, since I have the guitar here, I want to do just a brief little meditation on impermanence with sound. And notice how it is that there is no tone. And then notice how it suddenly springs into being. Of course, when the tone of the guitar isn't happening, there are other sounds around us. Notice that they too come into being and then disappear. In addition to the ear door and sounds, we have, for a time, a lifetime, this body which provides a fine home base for paying attention to change. Breathing is change. It's one thing to think about it, it's another thing to observe it absolutely intimately and directly. In a moment of that, when the breath begins, it comes with a certain, not surprise, but a certain freshness. Of course, in the body, in ways that we don't have direct perception of, billions of cells are alive, changing. we breathe because of the metabolism of sugars to create energy. It's busy in there. Hundreds of billions of bacteria. We pay attention in meditation to the level at which we have sensitivity mindfulness of the body. Mindfulness of change in the body. Another part of the mystery of being a human is that we can apparently direct awareness. For instance, please become aware of that place in the universe you think of as my hands, your hands. Suddenly there's life. And do you feel hands or do you feel sensations? Or directing awareness, allowing awareness to open in what you call the face. Or bring awareness into the sensations that arise as the body breathes in and breathes out. In the Satipatthana Sutra, the teachings on mindfulness, after each direction of something else to pay attention to in human experience. There's a repetition, a refrain. I skipped over it for decades. A little critical. It's like, why do they repeat this thing? Until a few years ago, I read Bhikkhu Analayo's book on mindfulness. He said it's repeated because it's the most important part of the teaching. It's what makes it insight meditation. So observing the coming and going of the breath in the body. And in this coming and going, notice the beginnings and endings, origination factors and dissolution factors. So not only do we practice remarkable intimacy with the body and breathing in and out, but we're also noticing how each breath comes out of nowhere. Of course, the mind wanders off. This is the normal propensity of the human mind, to create a past and future, to become embroiled in emotions. And there is this mysterious capacity, the Buddha, that which is awake, which illuminates these wandering thoughts and emotions, makes it clear that they arise spontaneously by themselves. In the most relaxed way you can, Notice how thoughts actually think themselves into being. How consciousness can wink out in a moment, fall into sloth and torpor. How, despite our best intentions, the mind can fall into trances of the past and future, stories about existence, about what happened this morning or may happen this afternoon. Anicca. Not, the word is not nicca, permanent, not permanent. Can you find the location of that which is aware? Does it have a location? We make a profound presumption unconsciously. There is an I. And it is this I which is aware. Can you find that I? Maybe there's just awareness. This awareness is the Buddha. We could call it the Christ consciousness or the heart of the Divine Mother in some form. Maybe this that we seek is closer than our own breath. Receiving the breath. Noticing perhaps how it begins and then it continues. Until it reaches fullness. Then it declines and disappears. Perhaps this is one of those moments when it's hard to even find the breath, when the mind is lost in discursive thought. That too manifests radical impermanence. Please bring awareness into the place in the universe you call your head. And notice how it is to form an intention, a little plan, and then let your neck swivel slowly to the left, as though you were an owl, sort of. Just notice the intention, and then there's this rotation. Be aware of the change. Take it as far as it will go, and then back off a little bit, and then with an in-breath, going a little further. Let your shoulders stay stable. And then notice the rotation to the right. And go as far as you gently can, and then let up a little bit. And this time on an out breath, let the head turn further. Mindfully turning back toward the center. And now letting the head loll forward on the neck toward the chest. Sensations come into being that weren't there a moment ago. Let the back slouch a little bit. And now, doing the reverse. Notice the change. Sitting ultimately up very straight. And then letting the head go back a little bit further. We might ask, what's this got to do with meditation? It has everything to do with meditation. We're observing the reality of movement in the body and the truth of change. And now let your shoulders come back, as though your shoulder blades were going to meet, come back and down, while the head stretches up. And let your breath create more space in your upper body to live in. Let your breath exhale, and then let there be a very slow but powerful inhale. Head up and back, shoulders back and down. Breathing. Let your breath once again come way high up in the lungs and stretch the upper body. And then relaxing and exhale. Now your body might be calling out to stretch in some way. Really taking your time. How is it signaling it wants to move? What's the signal itself? And then at some point allow the movement to occur. Present in the body. And let's notice now how it is to plan, to notice the planning to bring this body to standing. And then, how does it do it? Paying really close attention. It's a lot of movement. What moves first? One of the skills, it's called upaya, skillful means, is to know and consciously decide, to what shall I attend? Right? So, standing, to what shall I attend? Could be the feet as they press into the floor. Could be the life in the hands, in the face. Could be seeing, being aware of seeing. If you're a person who works out in some way, here I am on an elliptical machine, to what shall I attend? Or here I am driving the car, to what shall I attend? The car driving one, it's best if we don't close the eyes, of course, but Ruth Dennison once picked me up in the airport at in the desert, in the Mojave Desert, and drove an hour back to the center. And she said when we got in the car, "Let's not talk, darling. I'll guide us in meditation. And so she drove, and it was seeing, aware of seeing, checking mirrors, preparing to change lanes, checking mirrors, reaching for turn signal, hearing, all the way home for an hour. I was impatient at first because I'd gone to visit her and I had lots to share, questions to ask, but by the time we got back to the center, everything was cooled out. It's like, oh, right. This is life in the present moment. Standing. Notice that it's not possible to stand still. See how still you can stand. It's always adjusting. Of course, the mind has its own agendas, and so it may well be off in some story. But awareness will illuminate that process. And then there's the great moment of choice. What shall I do? How shall I relate to this? What karmic action shall I act upon in the next moment? So let's notice how it is to let the body begin to sway. How do you do that? Can you study impermanence as you do that? And let the swaying be beautiful. There's an image I like, which, you know, when you walk on the beach sometimes you find kelp fronds. There's sometimes a rock on the bottom where the holdfast has been broken loose. And then there's a tube, maybe half an inch in diameter, sometimes 20 feet long, and then a few fronds. So if you were to imagine that you were one of those, clinging to the rocks with your feet, and then letting the rest of you be flowed around by the motion of the water. And now let's let this swaying to left and right become more exaggerated, so that at some point your feet begin to be, one foot begins to be weightless. There's no pressure on it. In fact, maybe you can even let it come off the floor. Just a little bit. And then in one of these sways, when the foot's off the floor, let it take a little step. And then go back. And then with the other foot, a little step. And then back. And now moving forward, let's let these steps link to one another, and we become a moving person, a walking person. And let your walking take you randomly in the room. Be aware of walking. Change. So we have a primary object, as it's called, in the breath, or in the walking. And then secondarily, sort of in the background, or in your intuition, noticing this, every step is change. And you'll have to you'll have to adjust your direction, because you would run into a zafu or a chair or a person or a wall. Notice those changes of direction. We are incredibly well skilled in this walking business. Walking and knowing it. Each step has a beginning, a middle, and an ending. Sometimes the question arises, well, what should I do with my eyes? And one answer to that is soft focus, blurry, and placed on the ground, on the carpet in this case, about 10 feet in front of you. Change. And I spoke about that refrain, that repetitive teaching in the Satipatthana Sutra. It says, become aware of change, the beginning and end of things. But then there's an interesting wrinkle. Internally, which means in oneself, but also externally, meaning notice someone else is walking. And notice how that also changes. In fact, it's never the same. And let's let our walking speed up a little bit, so it's more of a stroll. And check to see whether there's tension being held anywhere in your body. And if there is, just shake it out a little bit and move toward ease and relaxation. And if you feel so inclined at some point, just stop and watch life go on around you. Change continues. And then we could get a little playful. At some point, somehow or another, watch the decision make itself to spin 360 degrees or twice that, and watch the visual field as it changes utterly. And then you come out of that going in some direction. How does that happen? Change. Anicca. People often ask, well, how can I stay mindful in daily life? Here we are. Or how can I stay mindful in relationship, which is another step here. If you wish, please just stay walking, or sitting or standing, however. But if you want to play this next step, as you approach someone, reach out your hand and touch the back of their hand with your hand. Let's make eye contact. Stay in, touch, touch, and be aware of the contact. You don't give anything away or take anything from anyone. It's just contact. I suppose we do give the acknowledgement that I see you exist. Touch. Touch. And another step of this would be to meet a person and let your hands meet as though you were going to shake hands, but have it be a very light touch. Just a touch. A touch, touch. And then we could add in, this is a practice I often do, it takes an hour or two, we're doing a lot. Reaching, touching, and now think a kind thought. What would a kind thought, a blessing thought? What would you like to wish for this person that you're meeting? And then make contact, the wish. And then, to the degree that you're comfortable with it, let your eyes make contact for a moment and pause. And you can know that the person across from you is wishing you well. Contact, seeing. And this might provoke anxiety. If it does, that's another object of meditation. But there's no way to do it wrong, is there? Be sure to remember to reflect that the person is wishing you well. Some of us have unworthiness issues. All right, let's let go of that. And now the really fun part of this practice, which is let yourself walk a little faster. Notice how you can be utterly mindful. Walking, knowing that you're walking. And notice the people around you as they take evasive action. and then inserting your name in this statement, blah, blah. Your flight is going to leave in 5 minutes, and it's really, you're going to lose your seat if you're not here soon, and pace yourself accordingly. And then you remember, I really want to get to that wedding or whatever it is you're going to, and but stay mindful. Mindfulness is not something that happens only sitting on the cushion.
I saw you in the crowd. I want to say hi.
And you get to the gate and the announcement comes, we're sorry to announce the flight has been delayed by 16 hours. But you're not upset because you know exactly what to do. You've got a wonderful little meditation retreat ahead of you. All right, so now let yourself slow down. And hey, let's find our way back to our sitting spots. Oh, here. Good. How are you?
Good.
Finding peace in the midst of chaos.
Oh, worry.
Okay.
As much as possible.
Good morning, Sangha. My name is Avi. I'm community coordinator here. And Kirsten has some volunteer announcements.
Hi. So, a couple things. We have a gardening day work party coming up next Saturday. And I just published it to the website this morning, and it's viable to sign up now. Anyone can sign up. You don't have to go through me. You can just go to the website. And it's from 10 to 2, but you can come for part of it or all of it. Jessica Marla is one of the coordinators for that. She's doing hospitality today, so she's back there. And then Clara, are you here somewhere? There she is. So Clara is also one of the coordinators for that, so you can go talk to one of them if you want more details. And as well, Robert had some very specific things that he wanted help with, and I finally got that up and running as well. Some of that has to do with his forthcoming book. He's wanting some help with social media and things like that. Also, he'd like some help with Ruth Denizen's website and cleaning up some of the recordings for that. There was someone, is Kim here? Kim Putnam? Okay, well, there's one person who's interested in helping with that, but we need a few more. So that's also live on the website, and I sent out this morning an email through Connections and also through Constant Contact with some more information. So, but for those things, those are very specific things that Robert would like some help with. So if you're interested, for sure, respond to the email or sign up, but then you're gonna need to speak with Robert. So you can email him or talk with him and get in touch. Other than that, we're doing okay with the kids program. It seems like we usually get one or two like the day of, and we have a couple folks who are like regularly signed up for once a month, but we'd really love to have some more regular once a monthers. That would be so helpful. And that kids program is so important, as you know. We want the Dharma to be really available to everyone, and people who have kids, it's hard for them to be here if there's no one to help support them. So if you're willing to do that, even just for 1 hour, once a month, that would be awesome to have that regular commitment from you. So that's something I can help you sign up for, but again, you can just go to the website and sign up for yourself. But yeah, come see me if you'd like to speak with me about that and what's involved with that. Rebecca is our teacher. She's also around after a little bit, and you can talk to her too.
Cool. Thank you. Here, I'll take that. And Tia, I think you have something about engaging the Dharma, eh?
Okay, I am up here.
Oh, wait a minute. Did it not work? Oh, come on. Technology is great except when it works, except when it doesn't work. There we go.
My name is Tia. I'm with the Engaging the Dharma group, which you're all invited to be a part of. And I wanted to briefly describe what we've just gone through and where we're going. We've discovered it's challenging with people's ebb and flow of their life and ability to commit to more things in our lives. And so we met at Laughing Planet last Wednesday and had a nice meal together and decided to sort of choose a theme for the next 6 months, different themes. Some of them being like workshops where we're learning things, some of them being service where we're going out into the community doing a project, and some of those where we're really doing something here at PIMC, bringing people together in sort of a service work. So I'm going to share what, it's still sort of solidifying. Our next meeting is, we meet the first Sunday of every month after like about 12:30, right? So I'm just going to read these, and I'll be downstairs after the Dharma talk and some other people from Engaging the Dharma if you have questions or comments. So July, we are going to host a family night, and I'll say a little bit more about that in just a second. August, some kind of environmental stewardship. September, a workshop involving learning more about anti-racism. October, a letter writing where we'll do a different legislative focus every week. November, a brown bag lunch where we'll get together here at PIMC and assemble lunches to then deliver to shelter probably in the community. And then in December, shoe boxes where we'll collect different items and include assembling them on some day in December and passing them out. So this is just solidifying. If you want to help, if you want to be a part of one of these things or more, this will give you an opportunity to say, okay, November, that brown bag is coming up and I want to be a part of it. And so the family night, we're still working on a Friday or a Saturday. If you're someone who has a family or needs a family, you're invited to come. And it will be, on a Friday or Saturday in July. We're going to go downstairs after this and identify the day. And from about 4 to 7, we'll have dinner. We'll have a craft of some sort where we're going to make art for this building somewhere inside or outside. And this is an opportunity for those families who have kids to really get together and connect when sometimes I have a almost 7-year-old and it's hard to come to workshops sometimes and meetings, so we're trying to provide more opportunities there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tia. So the Engaging the Dharma opportunities, they show up on the homepage. We also have a specific page on the website for Engaging the Dharma where we include notes and coming events. So please stick to watching the website. If you were to look at the website once a week, just for like a couple of minutes, you would get a really good sense of what we're doing, particularly that homepage. Among the things that were mentioned was the classroom. We please think about volunteering once a month. That would really help us. In addition to the gardening volunteer party and lunch that is happening next Saturday, we also have another opportunity to engage with the Sangha, which is we're going to have a 13.5 mile, 9-hour hike that will be all about mindfulness that Vic is going to be leading. And pre-registration is required. You need to contact Rick. Only 12 people are permitted. So if you have an interest in this, you can either go gardening or you can go hiking for 9 hours. So
I'll be here later on if you guys want to come and talk to me.
Vic was kind enough to provide an awful lot of detail about how this will work and where he's going. It's all on the website. On Sunday, June 30th, is the last Sunday evening sit. There has been a Sunday evening sit here since, I don't know how long, but for years. And the Teachers Council has made a decision that it seemed like it was time for it to end so that resources could be leveraged elsewhere. And I think there are other things that are being planned that will be additions to the schedule coming up, and we will learn about those later. On Tuesday, July 2nd, is going to be the monthly NVC practice group with Doyle and Kirsten. Kirsten, is that going to be your last It's going to be Kirsten's last month leading the NVC group before she goes off to Colorado. Then Saturday, July 6th, is our first Saturday month-long retreat. Then Sunday, July 7th, we have our newcomer orientation session. Then also on July 7th, we've got our next monthly meeting of the Engaging the Dharma Initiative. July 7th through 19th is Robert's Mountain Waters Retreat. Information is on the website how to sign up for that. Sunday, July 14th is the second Sunday PIMC potluck. Saturday, July 20th is our Buddhist movie night. We'll be screening Brother, Sun, Sister Moon. And also on Saturday, July 20th, will be Jim's half-day Qigong retreat. If you want to track these things are available outside those double doors. They are free. You don't have to pay anything for them. And we also have all this information on the website. So if you have any curiosity about what's going on and want to get more engaged, then the website is always open to you. If you want to receive emails in your inbox because you don't have enough emails, there is a blue sign-up clipboard there with blue sheets on it. Please sign up, let us know who you are, and we can add you to the mailing list. And if you would like Dharma consults, if you would like the ability to discuss something that's going on with your practice or have a quick on-ramp to developing a daily practice, please see me, and I would be happy to set you up with one of the teachers from the Teachers Console. Console. Technology focus. It's really a council. It's not a console. So I hope you all have a good day. Thank you very much for being here. Blessings.
This beautiful piece of wood here came from a roadside stand in the village of Mas, which is about 5 miles outside Ubud in Bali. And this beautiful rendition of Guan Yin is from Saigon. Thanks. Jennifer, my wife, and I went on our honeymoon a few years back to a small island. If you look on the map, it's a piece of Vietnam, but it's underneath Cambodia. They've fought over it many times. And from the island, one of my missions on this trip was to get a beautiful feminine image of the awakened state. And it occurred to me that I could use some help, and so I looked online and I found a fellow who did guiding, and he called himself Zoom. And we hooked up and we were arranging a tour and so on. And then I told him what I wanted to do, and he said, "Oh, you are Buddhist. No charge for your tour. And I will help you find the sculpture you're looking for." And we went to the wood carving street, and the very first image that my eyes fell on was this one. And we continued to look for a while, and nothing came close to her. Part of the story of Guan Yin is that I can't remember if it was her father, Avalokiteshvara, can't remember, I think it was doing meditation practice and practiced for a long period of time, and then as he opened his eyes, he saw the suffering in the world was just huge. He hadn't reduced it much. And a single tear fell from his eye. And that tear on its way down turned into Kuan Yin. And so she is the manifestation of compassion. And sometimes she's called she who hears the cries of the world. Who hears the cries of the world. Gorgeous, isn't it? Come take a close look sometime. It's really beautiful. Oh, and she has this flask, which is the flask of human kindness, the water of life. And in this case, she comes out of the raw stump, and then she's pouring compassion back into the world. Quite gorgeous. Which is, in a way, the essence of our practice. And another announcement. From Suffering to Peace, an evening with Mark Coleman. Tonight, 7:15 at the Little Church, which is somewhere up northeast. I've met Mark a couple of times at teachers' conferences. He's an incredibly vibrant human being. He created at a conference I was at in upstate New York. Ruth Dennison was still alive, and I was moving her around in a wheelchair. And we had a dance. Mark created a great playlist, and I was dancing Ruth. But he leads a mindfulness trip backpacking into the mountains, and he's got this new book, From Suffering to Peace, and very interesting fellow. So I encourage you, tonight 7:15 at the Little Church. I started intentionally drinking a lot more water. I discover I get thirsty. It's weird. All those years I didn't get thirsty much. The time of our lives. This then is what we're given. It's by Tony Taccone. This then is what we're given. 10 or 20,000 days wherein we watch a billion leaves, born, then blush, fall, turn to earth, to silt, to ash, so soft it will not bear a name. From this black dust we make our things, clothes, shelter, jewelry, fiction. Stories in which we seek conclusion, our highest and most dangerous invention. For this culling of days, this harvest of dust, gathers meaning only by our watching, our being, our sensation of what is forever being given, that our bodies are really only leaves seeking light, loved at last by the wind. That's something. This then is what we're given, 10 or 20,000 days, wherein we watch a billion leaves born, then blush, fall, turn to earth, to silt, to ash, so soft it will not bear a name. From this black dust we make things, clothes, shelter, jewelry, fiction. Stories in which we seek conclusion, our highest and most dangerous invention. For this culling of days, this harvest of dust, gathers meaning only by our watching, our being, our sensation of what is forever being given, that our bodies are really only leaves seeking light, loved at last by the wind. And, come on. And from the Buddha, thus should you look upon all this changing world. All component things are impermanent. All component things are subject to dissolution. See all of this world as a star at dawn, a bubble in a stream, a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, a flickering lamp, a phantom and a dream. Thus should you look at upon this changing world. All component things are impermanent. All component things are subject to dissolution. See all of this world as a star at dawn, a bubble in a stream, a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, a flickering lamp, a phantom, and a dream. This is another rendition of Kuan Yin. This is the one, it's called In Her Royal Ease, that particular form. There's a person, a woman, who's had a huge impact on my life, despite the fact I've only been with her a handful of days, really. Last 2 summers ago, she was here for a day, Joanna Macy. And I get teary thinking of that day. And her, she's 80-something. She arranged with Betsy Toll of Living Earth here in town. Betsy was trying to get her to come to Portland, and she said, yes, and this will be my last trip to Portland. She's not sick, but she's not, it's hard for her to travel at this point. And how many of you have heard of Joanna? Oh, good. So almost half, maybe. I encourage you to look on YouTube and watch something of Joanna. She's really something, and she has several amazing books, life-transforming books. She's one of the founders of the deep ecology movement, and the work among the things that she's done was 20 years ago, maybe more. She went around the world, particularly to the villages around Chernobyl. And she gathered the people together, and they spoke about the incident. They did workshops about the incident. No one spoke of it. And from that, or leading into that, she developed a model that she called Despair and Empowerment Workshops, where she would take us, and she does this with large groups, or she did, gather us together, and then we would speak our despair to each other, small groups, and then in the larger group, and it would get very heavy, lots of tears, and what that does is that we realize how much we're all carrying, how incredibly difficult our lives have been and are, how much fear we have, and we look around the world and we see other people functioning, and maybe they're even looking happy, and sometimes we are. But there's this other piece that we don't talk about, which is, well, I'm dealing with this trauma, and so on. So then from that, she helped us move into the darkness. And then she did one of the beautiful exercises. She played a piece of music and did this voiceover in which she said, it's being interrupted internally. If you go online and look for her, look for the prophecy, the Shambhala warrior prophecy. That's worth watching, really. And then she speaks to us and says, we're all lying on the floor. You've been born at exactly the right moment. The injuries of this lifetime, the wounds from childhood, the hunger, the loss, the divorce, the death of the child, that these are all exactly the training that you took birth for, so that you could now stand up and take your place in what she calls the great turning. And she speaks of, there's been several true revolutions on the earth, not political revolutions, but the agrarian revolution, where we began to live around crops. And then there came the industrial revolution. And there's now a technological revolution. And the next revolution of which we are an integral part is the revolution of consciousness, where we realize that we are all interconnected, we are all one. Not as a metaphor, not as a religious belief, but as we really get it. And it's very encouraging to me to have those teachings available and to reflect on them. And we can see super clearly the pushback against that. I was listening this morning to a woman speaking about the prison camps that we have on the southern border, and the way that our children, that hundreds and thousands of children are in metal boxes, basically. And because of some ideas that they don't belong here. Right? This is our country. And these are pretty traditional ideas, but they are the old paradigm. And the woman was asked, she's an attorney, teaches at Stanford. She went on a fact-finding mission, and they don't usually talk publicly. And they asked, the interviewer asked her, why are you doing this? And she said, several of those children that I interviewed are the age of my children. And I couldn't not speak. I can't not speak. And so around the world, we're having this encounter. Resources are dwindling, water's drying up, and we have this huge environmental challenge. And there are forces that, the forces go to I, me, mine, my tribe, I'm going to close the gates and I'm going to make it okay for my people. Or me. And that's a very natural part of us as human beings. We all have it. But how then do we combat that without becoming that? Without indulging in hatred and anger against something? And that's where Joanna's teaching was so beautiful, because it really says, go deep inside and find the connection that we have with each other and with all beings. And then from that naturally will come skillful action. And the Buddha had the same teaching, same mission. So coming back to anicca, what if, little thought experiment here, what if we could all, everyone in this room, everyone watching the broadcast, what if for 5 seconds we could drop out of this sense of personal identity and recognize our interconnection, our interbeing. Right? You know, all those, the fears that we have, and the shame, and the stories from our lives, and the challenges that we get so preoccupied with. What if we could just open? What if we could fall in love with each other completely? How would we act? We'd act lovingly, right? Instead of I, me, mine, it would be us, 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 us. So way back 2,600 years ago, Siddhartha Gautama had that happen. Right? Enlightenment wasn't up, up and away, it was down, down and in. And so everyone he met, he saw with his motivations. The motives that arose were love, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. Those were the emotions. And they're not alien to us, we all know what they are. And what he taught was that we're capable of cultivating them. Imagine that. That we're not stuck with the consciousness we have today because everything's impermanent. One of the things, a beautiful image in the Joanna's Shambhala warrior prophecy is that the Shambhala warrior awakens and realizes that she, he, they we're right in the middle of the beast. It's not over there, it's in us. And that because the armaments, particularly, but because the structures that are so unhelpful to us as individuals, families, communities, and that planetary society, because they were created by humans, they can be uncreated by humans. That the problem on the earth is the human mind. And that we have access to that. We all have direct access to the engine room. So, the Buddha started first sermon, the Four Noble Truths, the Four Ennobling Truths. First one, there really is suffering. Birth, sickness, old age, decay, death. Being with people we don't want, not being with people we do want. Having experiences we don't want to have, not having the experiences we do want to have. And it's there all the time. Dukkha, unsatisfactoriness. Ruth Denison said, "Darling, there's always a leak in the canoe." Right? Dukkha. But what's the cause of dukkha? It's the separate self's desire for things to be different. I want it to be different. I want more pleasure, I want less pain, and I want to become something. This moment is so yucky. instead of living in this moment, I'm going to create a fantasy, a trance state of becoming, and I want to become something different. And then with observing these very clearly, which is the purpose of meditation, then we get moments at first of the dukkha going away. Nothing's changed, but the dukkha's gone. Or something's changed. Nothing may have changed with the circumstances, but my demand for something to be different stops. And we all know this experience, but most of us humans have no idea how to practice to enhance this capacity of accepting things as they are. One very important piece here, it doesn't mean that we accept child abuse, or it doesn't mean we accept locking children up at the border. We can act as fully and firmly as we can, but then when we get to the place that our actions, and we can act lovingly, but when we get to the point that our actions are not working, then we can relinquish the suffering of it and realize that, yes, this is the world. This is the way of the world. So we don't drive ourselves into greater and greater depression. We move into greater and greater compassion. I was sitting here earlier during the first half hour, and I opened my eyes, as I like to do sometimes. And I encourage you to do that when you're sitting in meditation here in particular. Stop and look around. Right? It's pretty low threat because everyone has their eyes closed. But look around and see what happens in your heart when you see this many people practicing. And by extrapolation, I guess it would be, you can know that despite the fact that they look like they're in bliss, they may be struggling with something really heavy. And then what does that provoke? It provokes compassion. Because we all are, and there's something so inspiring, and I'm so grateful to you for coming, that the efforts that you make here and in your life transform you, but they also transform everybody you touch. Everybody you interact with. The Sufis have a lovely phrase. They say, each person has an atmosphere. And it's true. And if your atmosphere is contracted and frightened and threatened, then every interaction has that atmosphere. If your atmosphere is, Kuan Yin is a part of me, and I turn toward my own suffering with greater and greater compassion. I'm willing to, hearing the cries of the world, I'm willing to hear that anguish in my own being. And therefore there's room for the person, even if it's memory. I was in an airport somewhere. South somewhere. And there was a young woman in a hijab serving me. And it was after one of the atrocities had been popularized somehow. And I said to her, Assalamu alaikum. She looked at me. And then I said, I'm so sorry that so many Americans are so ignorant about Islam. What a connection. We both got kind of teary, and because the ignorance is so thick, and it's so natural for us human beings to be ignorant, And then to have that fired up by someone or someone's, it pits us against each other and we contract. So we don't have that sweet interaction. So we can, however, practice. And we practice, we are the first recipient of our practice of compassion. Right? And every time you sit down to meditate, you're practicing compassion. Every time you remember, here I am driving, you're practicing compassion and awareness. And the anicca piece that I want to touch back in on. I want to suggest 2 practices to you. Maybe today, maybe another day. Make an intention in the morning. I'm going to watch out for impermanence all day. And you'll forget, of course, but then you may remember again. Watch for impermanence. Because it is, my favorite English word, utterly ubiquitous. In every nanosecond, everything's changing. And a practice that can support that practice of anicca goes like this. This moment is like this. I'm here. Now I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. All day long, the only place we ever are is here. And one of the things that goes into is the realization that I am not moving through the world. The world is appearing moment after moment. I get to drive along, I live in Beaverton, and I drive along Multnomah Boulevard, which is about a 3.5 mile straight stretch. And most times, I practice this way. I realize, what am I? I am awareness. And what's happening? Wow! This world is rushing into me. And it is nothing but change. It is the essence of, and there isn't anything more entertaining than that. It's very engaging. So as you leave here today, one thing I like the crash bars. I've used them. Doorknobs are great too. That as you touch the doorknob, realize I'm here, and then you're outside. I'm here, and that is gone, except in memory. But if we're mindful and we're noticing this is what's happening here, it becomes so obvious that there's only the present. And anicca starts shining bright, more and more brightly. It really is all impermanent. So then when you find yourself in one of those grumpy, crappy, irritated moods, I'm here. Is this mood permanent? Or is it these sensations in the body and these thoughts? When you're all ecstatic and high, and then, who likes to remember this then? But if you can, it's really so helpful to notice, oh, right, this is really pleasant, fun, and I'm here, and this is impermanent. As is the self that is having that experience. Now, what's this got to do with love? It is love. That to the moment when we recognize this is all I have now, then the person that we're with, the preciousness of them is so obvious. Right? Who knows if this revolution in consciousness is going to be sufficient. We don't know. But what a time to practice. What a time to be alive when the stakes are so high. Of course, they've always been high, right? We've said hello and goodbye a lot of times in this lifetime, and it's the nature of human life, hello and goodbye. So Anicca, remembering this impermanence, and I don't know whether it's age or practice, probably both. It's becoming clearer and clearer to me that everything really is impermanent. Right? It's so huge, it's almost inconceivable to the thinking mind that everything's impermanent. All those think of the things you worry about that may happen and then don't. And you've wasted all this. Oh, the procrastination in my life has been, I had extensions for my taxes every year until I married Jennifer, and she wasn't having any of that stuff. You will next year get your taxes ready. But all that anxiety, totally mind created. And an antidote to that is anicca, the awareness of the reality of change. So I'm going to pause, see if there's any sharing. We have about 5 minutes. Would anyone like to share something about your understanding of anicca and how it is love together? Or whatever else is there. The microphone awaits you. Or we could just sit here quietly and watch the show. It's quite something, isn't it? Please, let me come to you. Hang on. I spent about 10 hours yesterday with a sanding machine doing hardwood floors, so I'm kind of slow moving. Please say your name too, okay?
Hello, I'm Sharon. Can you hear me? Is this working?
Perfectly.
Okay. I don't want to go on too much at length, but on June 14th, I was with my sister in a hospital when she died. And it's it's the most profound experience I think I have ever had in my life. I had never seen a dead body, and I had never been there when someone died. And she had been in quite a bit of pain from cancer, and then she was given medication so that was not the case. She was very peaceful when she died. But in various talks and books on Buddhism, I've read that one way of meditating is to watch your own breath and realize that your own breath will cease someday. And I actually saw that happen. I saw her breath become shallower and shallower and shallower. And then she didn't take another breath. And I feel so privileged to have seen that. I mean, it sounds crazy, but if you ever can watch someone die, it is the most wonderful thing. It is so wonderful. And even the fact that I saw in one life, in this life, the cessation of suffering. One moment she was suffering, and then she wasn't suffering anymore in this life. And the phrase cessation of suffering just has a whole different meaning for me now. And I won't go on more than that, but it was, I was so lucky to be there. because she could have died at night. We talked about this, she and I, that I didn't have to be there. She didn't care. And it just so happened that I was there. I was conferring with the hospital about taking her to hospice. And I said to them, I said, I don't think they were going to move her the next morning, and I said, I think she's leaving. I don't think she'll do that. And that's the way it turned out. Anyway, thank you. And the fact that this talk today was on this, it's like almost a memorial for my sister. And
What was her name?
Lynn Drake.
Lynn, this is the memorial of Lynn Drake. Hello, Lynn, wherever you are. Thank you. Thanks for the teaching.
Yes. And I sat her down and made her watch a couple of your videos because I wanted her to know how important your teachings were. And she died to classical music on OPB. Too.
Nice.
Thank you.
So the kids are in the chute. Please let's make a big circle, and we'll make a little circle. And any of you that would like to come into the middle circle, come on in. Come on in. You stand a much better chance of being the person who blows out the candle if you're in close.
Okay.
They will. Oh, I thought they were right in the doorway. Okay. Oh, here goes somebody. Hey. Ta-da. Oh my goodness. Yay. No. Hi, everybody. So Rebecca is not with us today because her mom is dying. And we had a chat just before I came in, and the great teaching is happening for her, and she's really present for it. And so may that all go well. May I hold your hand? Thank you. May I hold your hand? Yay. Don't leave anybody out. So we're talking about impermanence and love. Feel this hand on either side, both sides, and remember how impermanent it is. In your contact, it just started. But also it's the fact that it's passing through a lifetime. Recognizing this, how could we not love each other? So give the person's hand on your right a little squeeze. Wish them well. What would your wish be? And the person on your left. And then everyone in your circle. And everyone in both of these circles. And all the people in the homes around us. And the people in the world who are living in great luxury and those who are living in great poverty and hunger. Those who are being born and those who are passing on right now. May we all remember our true great interbeing and love each other and be kind. And may we remember to do our own practice, to remember impermanence, compassion, what's really true. So, do we have Designated, you are, there you are. I just noticed you have sparkles too. You're a very sparkly pair. Here you go. 1. Oop, let's get ready. 1, 2, 3.
May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you. Well, we come to the moment of the blowing out of the candle. Positions, everyone. So I'm going to do the usual count. Everyone in the outer ring can help? And everyone at home? All right, breathing in. 1, 2, 3, blow. Yes, we did it. Hooray! Our wishes are granted. Please come and have a cup of tea and some goodies, and suffering occurs. Thank you. I don't know. Call.
Do I call Brighton?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Call. And